All right, moving straight through our unit 4. We're already on lesson 11, and today commas. So this lesson, the one we did yesterday on sentence fragments, it really starts building on that idea. If you remember, the way we corrected some of those sentences was to add a comma, like remove the period where they didn't have a complete sentence. We added a comma to make a complex sentence or a compound sentence. And we'll continue with that. Understanding how to use commas will be a big help. And then that will also serve us when we go to the next lesson, which is on making more complex sentences, basically. So today, by the time we complete this lesson, you'll be able to use commas correctly in writing. It's probably the most common punctuation that you see within a sentence. And most sentences that are more than just a subject verb and your complete sentence idea will probably have a comma in there somewhere. So let's take a look here and listen to our audio.
A comma separates a sentence into meaningful units. For example, use a comma to form a series or to set off introductory and interrupting or descriptive phrases. Use a comma with a conjunction when you combine sentences and when you use two or more adjectives to describe the same noun. Also, use commas with dialogue to set off the tagline, the words used to identify the speaker, from the dialogue.
Sometimes you'll hear somebody explain a comma as it represents a pause in a sentence, not like a full stop, like a period, which is a little bit simplistic. What it says here is really a great simple definition. A comma separates a sentence into meaningful units. So if it's an introductory clause or a subordinate clause, if it's a series, right, a serial comma where you're listing items. So we had eggs, bacon, and waffles for breakfast. Eggs, comma, bacon, comma, and waffles. You would separate all of those with a comma. And then an interrupting phrase. So if you kind of insert something in the middle of a sentence, adding more information or description or something like that, you would also use it there. And then, with a conjunction, so that's where I was talking about making more complex or compound sentences. We'll talk about those. A complex sentence has a subordinating clause, which is what we kind of dealt with yesterday with fragments, right? So that's a lot of those were subordinate clauses that didn't make a complete sentence. So that's where you'd use a comma to add that to a sentence, or a complex sentence, which actually has more than one subject. Emma went to school and Lisa went to work. You have two short sentences there, which we'll see that a little bit more as well when we get into the next lesson. So let's take a look at our rules here for comma usage. So the usage table here, right? Items in a series, just like I talked about, separating items. Apples, rolls, and milk at the grocery store. I bought apples, rolls, and milk at the grocery store. There's a little debate over whether you need the comma before and. There's some usage rules where they'll just be I bought apples, comma, rolls, and milk. More traditionally, and what I prefer and what you see, particularly in my field in history and other fields, they want you to use that comma after every item there. So for sake of ease, we'll continue to use that just like it has here. They're asking you to do it here. That's what we'll use. Introductory phrase, which I mentioned before, right? That's a subordinate clause. It doesn't stand alone as a sentence. To stay in shape, right? So to stay in shape, comma, football players must work out every day. Introductory phrases, transitional words and phrases, which we'll see here too. So here, interrupting or descriptive phrase or clause. So it's a complete sentence if you take out that descriptive phrase, but inserting it, you're going to have commas on either side. So Alex's car, a blue Sedette, is in the parking lot. Or my dad, who is turning 50 this year, just went skydiving. You see, it adds additional information. Again, it's a supporting clause. It doesn't stand alone, but you can also have a complete sentence if you remove it. So if you see, I can remove a blue sedan, I still have a complete sentence. Alex's car is in the parking lot, or my dad just went skydiving. But we're adding a little bit more information about Alex's car or my dad, and we're setting that off with commas. Combining sentences, right? So a compound sentence, just like I mentioned, is two whole sentences. They have a subject, verb, and then a tail to complete that. We drove to the lake, but the fishing pier was closed. So we drove to the lake. It's a whole sentence. The fishing pier was closed. Whole sentence. We put that conjunction in the center there, but to add contrast, right? We know that. So we drove to the lake, comma, but the fishing pier was closed. Building more complex and compound sentences, and it helps with the flow. And again, this leads really well into the next lesson. Two or more adjectives, right? So it was a long, dreary day. So long, dreary, right? Descriptive words. That explains the day. You're going to separate those with a comma, long, dreary. So my fat, lazy cat is asleep, right? Fat, lazy, you're going to have to separate that with a comma. Quotations. So again, thinking about, separating a unit, right? Just like all these other ones. So Sophia said, I'm going to take the dog to the park. And we separate the quotation with a comma. So over here in the first text box, it says a phrase is a group of related words that cannot stand alone as a sentence. A clause is a group of related words with a subject and verb, but may be incomplete on its own. Okay, so perfect one there, right? You look at a phrase, to stay in shape, right? It's a group of related words, not a complete sentence. A clause, on the other hand, who is turning 50 this year, right? That's more of a clause. But still, either whether it's a phrase or a clause, most likely it's not going to stand on its own. And then secondly, an interrupting phrase, a blue sedan, or a clause, like I just said, who is turning 50 this year. In the example sentences provides extra information, right? That's what those interrupting phrases do. If this phrase or clause were removed, you still have a complete sentence, but you're adding information. So let's take a look at our quiz then. See what we get into here, using commas correctly. All righty. So there's those examples again. When and where we use the commas. And then here it says, when using the computer, be careful not to mistake the apostrophe for the comma, basically on your keyboard. The comma key is directly to the right of the M key. The symbols look similar. So the apostrophe is off by the enter key usually, or the return key, and it's with the quotation, whereas the comma is next to the M key. But once you actually type it, you probably get a better idea of which one's which. How about Tracy? You want to try number 1 here?
Yes, my two brothers, Mike and Tom, came with me to the baseball game last weekend. Which is the best way to write the underlined portion of this sentence? A brothers, comma, Mike and Tom, comma, came. B, brothers, comma, Mike and Tom, comma, came. C, brothers, Mike, comma, and Tom came. D, brothers, comma, Mike and Tom came. D.
B, yeah. So here, and that's something else I should mention as well. You don't need a comma in between just two items. In this case, like Mike and Tom, you wouldn't separate that. So here, right, we have a complete sentence without Mike and Tom. My two brothers came with me to the baseball game last weekend. So we have additional information, and we're going to use B here. So to set in more information, in this case, the names of the two brothers. So my two brothers, comma, Mike and Tom, comma, came with me to the baseball game last weekend. And that should be two words, game last weekend. They run them together there. B as in boy here for number 1. Okay, and let's see here. It looks like we got a letter. So to whom it may concern, as a frequent user of the city transit system, I am disappointed with the proposal to discontinue bus route 97. Grace, what do we want to use? How do we want to use our comma here?
D.
D, yeah. So here's another tip, right? Just like when we look for signal words and transition words and stuff like that, there's certain words that if you see at the beginning of a sentence, you know that's probably going to be like an introductory clause or an introductory phrase or something like that. So here, as a frequent user of the city transit system, comma, I am disappointed with the proposal to discontinue bus route 97. So you could start to see, it's like, okay, where's that comma? Where do I need to separate this unit in my sentence? So here, as a frequent user of the city transit system, comma, I am disappointed with the proposal to discontinue bus route 97, which provides direct service from Midtown to the warehouse district. That's a really big sentence there. And you'll notice they separate it a couple times there with commas. The proposal does not take into account the needs of Midtown's citizens. Like many people in Midtown, I depend on bus route 97 to get to and from my job in the warehouse district. If this route is discontinued, I will have to transfer 4 times just to get to work. The city transit system's proposal also does not take into account Midtown's elderly citizens, such as my mother. My mother does not own a car and relies on bus route 97 to get to the city park, the supermarket, and the hospital. It is the quickest, easiest way for her to travel to these places. Sasha Gay, what do you want to use here?
C.
C, quickest, easiest way. We're separating our descriptive words there. So quickest, comma, easiest way for her to travel to these places. If the proposal is approved, my mother will have to walk several miles each way to buy groceries, pick up medication, or see her doctor. Nilda, where do we want our commas here?
B.
B, right? So after groceries and after pick up medication. So miles to buy groceries, comma, pick up medication, comma, or see her doctor. So you'll see a serial either and or. Those usually are the 2 ways that things will be set off in a list. As if it weren't enough to discontinue such an important transportation route, the city transit system also has proposed to increase bus fares. Now it will take longer for many people in Midtown to get to their jobs, and it will cost more money for them to do it. Christiana, we'll try this one. Christiana, maybe, no. Okay, we'll come back to her. Tracy, how about you try this?
Um, this just and it. This just and it. Yeah.
So you're close. You're on the wrong side of the and though. You want a. So in when you have that conjunction, so we're going to separate the at the right before the conjunction. So Midtown to get their jobs, comma, and it will cost more money for them to do so. The city transit system claims that cutting bus service and raising fares will help it survive these tough times. However, I believe that these proposals will make the city transit system make the city transit system's survival in Midtown even tougher. Okay, so there we go. We had a introductory clause for the first example, and then we separated our descriptive words, our adjectives in the second, and then a list, a serial, comma for the third, and then we separate it by a conjunction, and that's two complete sentences there, right? Now it will take longer for many people in Midtown to get to their jobs. You have a whole sentence there. You put a period right there. Instead, we're making a compound sentence with the comma, and it will cost more money for them to do so. All right. So there we go with the quiz. All right, let's take a look at the workbook. So like, I don't know why I have blue marks on my screen all of a sudden. That's weird. So commas divide sentences and sentences apart into meaningful units. That's the best, simplest, most complete definition you can have of a comma. You know, they help clarify things for readers. That's where the kind of the idea where it sort of introduces a pause. Not so much that you're pause when you read it, you do to some degree in certain situations, but it helps sort of signal to the reader as far as you know, different information, different point in the sentence, you know, whether it's serial or something like that. It's showing this, you know, sort of like, you know, switching gears, right? There's something new or there's something different, and that's what the comma helps set aside. So let's take a look here. Here's a great sort of web to show us again. So looking at separate items in the series, like we did before. We went to the grocery store, comma, the mall, comma, and the movies. Set off an introductory phrase or clause. After he warmed up, comma, Mike ran 5 miles, right? We do not have a complete sentence there in the beginning. We have an introductory clause. We're going to separate that with a comma. Mike ran 5 miles. Set off an interrupting phrase or clause, right? My mom, who doesn't listen to rock music, went to a Tom Petty concert last night. They have a complete sentence without that interrupting phrase or clause. My mom went to a Tom Petty concert last night. But for the reader, it gives you more information and understanding as, you know, why that might be special or unique, you know, because her mother doesn't like rock music. So we're adding to the sentence some information to help the reader and to help flesh out the idea. And then combine 2 complete sentences, right? So we had tickets for the game, but it was canceled. I could say we had tickets for the game, period. It was canceled, but it flows better if we combine those 2 sentences and we add that contrast with but there, right? Separating 2 or more adjectives, right? So that was the worst, most blatant foul I've ever seen. Worst, most blatant being your adjectives there. You're going to separate those and then set off dialogue. So that's where you're going to see the use of quotation marks, right? So here, whether it's at the beginning or somewhere in the middle or end of the sentence, so see you tomorrow, comma, the teacher said. You could also say the teacher said, comma, see you tomorrow, moving things around in the sentence. All right, let's open up our workbook here. And then our content topic says, in this sentence, I think my parents, John and Martha, it is clear that the parents are named John and Martha. Writing, I think my parents, John and Martha, indicates that additional people are things. So that's where you also have to be careful with the use of commas. There's a lot of memes out there about, when you don't separate things correctly, you wind up changing the idea of the sentence. So here, I think my parents, comma, John and Martha. By putting that extra comma after John, then it looks like we're thinking more people besides the parents. We're thinking the parents and then some people named John and Martha. So those are some tricky ways sometimes that commas come into play. And that's what I also mentioned. If you're only if you're separating something with and, if you're separating two things, you don't put a comma in between them unless they're part of a list. If it's only two items like my brother Tom and Bob or whatever, you wouldn't use a comma in between there. Okay, so let's take a look at number one. Grace, you want to answer number one for us?
Okay. As its name suggests, Seasons serves a seasonal menu that incorporates fresh, wholesome products. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, remove the comma after suggest. B, insert a comma after menu. And C, insert a comma after fresh. D, insert a comma after wholesome. B. Oh, C.
Yeah. So we have adjectives there, right? Fresh, wholesome. And we're going to separate those, add a little, two different units there, break up the sentence a little bit. So season serves a seasonal menu that incorporates fresh, comma, wholesome products. So C as in cat. Okay. Right, then two, let's go to Sasha Gay for two here.
The salad, bread, and cheese are on the table, said Dan. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, insert a comma after table. B, remove the comma after salad. C, remove the comma after bread. And D, insert a comma after cheese. Is it D?
It's A. So our use here, right? We're separating things in a list. So the salad, bread, and cheese are on the table. So that's correct. And remember, if we're using quotes, if we're setting off, a quotation, somebody speaking, we're going to use a comma there at the end of the quotation. So the salad, comma, bread, comma, and cheese are on the table, comma, quotation mark, said Dan. We're going to drop that in right there. All right. So A for number two. Okay. And a letter from a cable company. So, dear valued customer, this letter is to inform you that the national cable will be updating its pricing plan this spring. Instead of paying a fixed rate, you will now have the opportunity to pay the amount of bandwidth you use each month. Nilda, you want to try that one?
Yes. One moment.
It's fine.
C.
C, yeah. So there's another introductory clause, right? Instead of paying a fixed rate, comma, you will now have the opportunity to pay the amount of bandwidth you use each month, right? So that's another word, instead. If you encounter that at the beginning of a sentence, you're probably going to see a comma to set off an introductory clause or phrase. It's in this case, instead of paying a fixed rate, comma, you will now have the opportunity to pay by the amount of bandwidth you use each month. Under the previous pricing plan, customers could choose among several internet packages, including the basic plan, the high-speed plan, and the supercharged high-speed plan. Christiana, what do we want to use here? I think Christiana might be having a little trouble today. We'll go with, let's go with Tracy here. Why don't you try that one?
Yes, we'll have a plan, um plan and see.
This is B. So we have a list of items again. So it's this is a huge sentence, by the way, too. So we have introductory cost at the beginning. Under the previous pricing plan, comma, customers could choose among several internet packages, including, and this is actually part of a sort of an interrupting phrase. So including the basic plan, comma, the high speed plan, comma, and the supercharged high speed plan. So there's that serial use of the comma there. So B, that was that's just a big old ugly sentence. So there's a lot going on there. But yeah, that's basically what that comes down to, is just separating a list of items. And it's a little tricky because you actually have multiple words, not just like, toast, eggs, and waffles, or something like that. It's multiple words in there. So including the basic plan, comma, the high-speed plan, comma, and the supercharged high-speed plan. Although we were the first internet service provider to offer customers a choice of high-speed options, we also were the first to realize that these options were not cost effective. Instead of raising the price of our internet service options, we have decided to institute a pricing plan based on how much you use the internet. Oh, what did I just do? Okay, there we go. With our consumption-based plan, all of our customers will have access to the supercharged high-speed plan, but they will have to pay only for the amount of bandwidth they use each month. Grace, what do we want to use here?
C.
Yeah, there you go. So that's right. So we're separating again with that but, right? So conjunction there. B. I'm sorry. I say B. I meant C. Right? Supercharged high-speed plan. So another big sentence there. So with our consumption-based plan, all of our customers will have access to the supercharged high-speed plan. We have a complete sentence there if we stopped. We're adding more information. We're basically adding another sentence. So, but they will have to pay only for the amount of bandwidth they use each month. Then, at the new rate of $2 per gigabyte of bandwidth used, our average customer will pay only $40 a month for internet service. Now, all national cable subscribers will have convenient, affordable access to the fastest internet service in the nation. Sasha Gay, what do we want to use here?
A. Is it A?
A. Yes, it is. It is A. So subscribers will have convenient, affordable access to the fastest internet service in the nation, right? We have adjectives there, separating the use of those adjectives to describe our internet service. So there we go. Okay, now Dear Dr. McMullen, dear Mr. McMullen. Okay, dear Mr. McMullen, I recently stayed in your hotel during my extended business trip to Atlanta. I am writing to express my gratitude for a lovely experience. As I'm sure you understand, it is difficult to be away from home. Nilda, we'll try that one.
C.
C. So, as I'm sure you understand, comma, it is difficult to be away from home. Again, there's that word as. If we see that, we know that there's an introductory clause or phrase there. So as I'm sure you understand, comma, it is difficult to be away from home. However, your facility and staff made this situation an enjoyable one. To begin, my room was well stocked with supplies, including soap, shampoo, drinking water, and coffee. Christiana, I'm going to unmute you. Let's see if I can. Well, no, I don't think I can. Okay. I was going to give that a shot. Let's go to Tracy then. Tracy, can you take care of this one for us?
Christina. Must you call Christina, right?
Oh, no, go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah. Including. And C.
See, it's A. So yeah,
yeah.
soap is, yeah, I see there. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 items. And each one we're going to separate that by a comma there. So including soap, comma, shampoo, comma, drinking water, comma, and coffee. I kind of looked at that too and thought for a second there, I was like, okay, soap, shampoos together, but that's going to be separate. So each one in the list there, soap, shampoo, drinking water, and coffee, we set off with the comma. My coffee station even included cream and sugar. I also had a large supply of fresh towels each day. The bed was comfortable and the spacious shower was easy to operate. Grace, we'll try that.
Teacher Math. Christiana say her meals, you unmute her so she can't talk. She can't unmute by herself. Maybe you unmute her. Yeah.
I don't think I can't unmute her. I can ask to unmute her, but I can't. It won't let me do anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know in Zoom we have a function unmute from the host. So maybe now, yeah, she just did it. She can't unmute by herself. So I don't know why. I just want you know this.
Then
Yeah.
she should log out and come in again. Or
Yeah, you can try
maybe
that. I mean, it's no big deal. You know, we can keep moving on. But yeah, I tried to. I can't. I can ask her to unmute, but I can't do anything. But yeah, it's no big deal. If she wants to try to come back in, that's fine. Or we're right at the end of this lesson, so she could wait. If you want to try to, close it out and come back in for the next lesson, we could try that. But no big deal. It happens. All right. So where were we? Grace. The bed was comfortable and the spacious shower was easy to operate.
Okay, B.
B.
Yeah.
B for 3 here. Yes. So the bed was comfortable. Whole sentence there, right? The bed was comfortable. We could put a period, but we got more information that's relevant. So we're going to put and, use that conjunction. So the bed was comfortable, comma, and the spacious shower was easy to operate. All right. And then additionally, the housekeeping staff did a thorough job of cleaning my room each day. They were even gracious about coming back on the day I decided to sleep in. Finally, the amenities at your hotel added to my overall experience. I was able to swim, exercise, and eat delicious meals, all without leaving the hotel. It's worth noting that the food was typical of hotel fare. It was nutritious and elegantly plated. In closing, I can promise you that I will recommend your hotel to my colleagues. Sasha Gay, you want to try that one? A for this one. So in closing, you remember we talked when we were doing our extended response and stuff, like using things like in conclusion. Here's another one you could use for like the end of your writing, your last paragraph. In closing, comma, I can promise you that I will recommend your hotel to my colleagues and I will be back for a return visit. All right, and that is, oh, no, wait. There's one more. Okay, that was my bad. So summons for jury duty, the verdict. Okay, here we go. Last one. After the witnesses finish their testimonies, the judge will instruct you about the law regarding the case. Nilda, what do we want here?
Let me see.
D.
D, yeah. There's another one of those words, after, before, you know, if you see those in the beginning of a sentence, you're going to have like an introductory phrase again. After the witnesses finish their testimonies, comma, the judge will instruct you about the law regarding the case. Excuse me. You must base your decision on the judge's instructions about the law instead of your own ideas about what the law is or should be. You and other members of the jury then will go to the jury room. One jury member will be selected as the foreperson, the presiding member of the jury. Tracy, what do we want to use here?
Yes. We want the press, the person name. C.
C. Yep. So that's like a sort of like an interrupting phrase at the end of a sentence where we're adding more information. So right, because we have a complete sentence without that little bit of additional information at the end. Wait a minute. Yeah. So one jury member will be selected as the foreperson. Right. We could end there and have a sentence. Instead, we put the presiding member. Right, we offset that with commas, comma, the presiding member, comma, of the jury. So that's explaining what the foreperson is, right? So he or she will lead your discussions and bring your verdict into the court. Your discussions in the jury room should include an honest expression of your opinions on the facts of the case and the testimony you have heard. Your discussions should also be tolerant and respectful of other people's opinions. In a civil case, you may have to decide whether there is any reason for the defendant to pay damages. If you find a reason to pay damages, you will determine how much the defendant should pay. If the jury cannot reach a unanimous verdict in a civil case within 6 hours, then a decision reached by 10 members of a 12-person jury is acceptable. In a criminal case, jury discussions are finished when a unanimous verdict has been reached. Grace, what do we want to use here?
D.
D. So another, like, you know, prepositional phrase, another introductory phrase like that. In a criminal case, comma, jury discussions are finished when a unanimous verdict has been reached. If the jury, after long discussions, cannot reach a verdict, the foreperson must tell the judge. Sasha Gay, what do we want here?
A.
B, so this is another interruptive phrase, right? So if the jury cannot reach a verdict, we could just say that. We're inserting more information. So if the jury, comma, after long discussions, comma, cannot reach a verdict, the foreperson must tell the judge. The jury has nothing to do with sentencing. If it returns a guilty verdict, sentencing is the judge's job. Further information will be provided by the presiding judge if you are selected for jury duty. Okay, and there is the end of our comma usage lesson. Okay, do we have any questions there? I need to follow up with any answers. All right, so this one, again, I already started my Google Classroom entry, and I have a few tips there for where we see commas and how to use them. And I'll put up our table as well in there. Just the simple rule to remember, it sets off units in a sentence, just like when you use it in math, we use it to set off like thousands, places, right? 1,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, or billion, just like that when we're working with numbers. Same sort of idea to some degree there with our use of commas. And let's see here if this is going to open up for me the way it should. I have no idea what this blue line is about on my screen. Okay, here we go. And this is where the last lesson kind of comes into play as we're combining sentences. So for this lesson, by the time we complete it, we're going to be able to combine sentences to make writing flow more smoothly. All right, so let's listen to our audio.
Writing can sound choppy if it contains too many short sentences. Often, short, related sentences can be combined to make longer, more fluid sentences. You can combine sentences in several ways. Use connecting words and commas. Combine repeated elements by using compound subjects or verbs. Use a semicolon. Use a semicolon with a signal word. Or combine sentences to show the relationship to another.
Yeah, so, good writers, your best writers are going to use a mix of combined sentences, complex and compound sentences, along with short sentences. Using those together will help your writing flow. Too many short sentences sound choppy. Short sentences are really great when you want to emphasize a point. And let's see, Christiana's back now. Let's see if we can, how this works for her. All right, so if I said something like, I came home and found that my dog had chewed up my new sneakers, period. I was angry, period. So you could use those shorter sentences to emphasize a point, and really drive something home. But too many in a row, like it says here, is sort of choppy and it doesn't flow well. So mixing those two together will really make you a stronger writer. All right, so let's take a look here at the rules. All right, so in one way, it eliminates wordiness. So using connecting words with commas and combine repeated elements. So here this is really choppy when you say, I went to the store, I went to the bank. Instead, you add and. I went to the store and the bank. You don't even have to have, you're not even combining two complete sentences. You're using the same verb there, I went, right? Because you went to two places. I went to the store and the bank. Now we have a more complex idea. Next, I bought a dog, I bought a leash, I bought some dog food. All similar ideas, right? They're all talking about the same sort of action, things that I bought. So we can just combine that into a serial, right? Into a list. I bought a dog, comma, a leash, comma, and some dog food. So you see, right, it flows a lot better. It's not as choppy, and you're combining similar ideas into one sentence. Next, so for better flow, make compound sentences by using connecting words, commas, semicolons, and signal words. So their example there to start, I called Todd, he didn't answer. You have similar elements there, so you put I called Todd, comma, but he didn't answer. Better flow, right? Adding some contrast there with that signal word, but. Tina was exhausted. She could not fall asleep. Here, what we have is Tina was exhausted, semicolon, however, she could not fall asleep. You could use but there as well, right? You could say Tina was exhausted, comma, but she could not fall asleep. Use semicolons sparingly. Basically, the one way you can think of one rule for the use of semicolons is that it replaces and in the sentence. You could put, there's not the best example, but you will see if it's just a semicolon with not like a signal word or transition word, it basically takes the place of and. Again, just as simple, you could put but she could not fall asleep here. But certain words like nevertheless or however, you could set that apart with a semicolon and a comma on the other side. And then combine sentences to show the relationship of one idea to another or to subordinate one idea to another. I practice, I improve. Becomes when I practice, I improve. So you see, when I practice is subordinate to I improve. So when I practice, comma, I improve. Jake does not like meat. Jake ate it. And sometimes those short sentences can be confusing, right? If I put that all together, although Jake does not like meat, comma, he ate it. And that now we're kind of connecting it with the idea of meat. Separating those into two sentences, even though it's correct, you sort of lose, the reader kind of loses what it is that he ate. Okay, so let's take a look at our quiz. Okay, start her up here. And here for our test taking tips. So it says you may need to add or delete some words when combining sentences. You can add words to clarify a sentence meaning or delete repetitive words. Check whether a subject or verb is repeated in back-to-back sentences. So that's really a good idea when it comes to those short sentences. Like the subject here, I, right? In this first example, I went to the store, I went to the bank. I'm using the same subject. So there's a good indicator that I could combine those sentences. If I'm talking about, somebody else, Lisa. Lisa went to the store and period, she went to the bank, something like that. Same thing, just different use of pronouns there, right? I use Lisa as subject and then I use she for the pronoun. So that's a good tip there, though. If you're using the same subject over and over again, see if you can combine those sentences. Okay, let's try Christiana, see if she can join us now for number 1. No, might still have a problem here. Okay, well, we gave it a try. We'll move on. Sounds like she might be having some issue there. No worries. Let's try Grace here for number 1 on the quiz.
Okay. We went to dinner. We went to the movies. We went out for coffee. Which is the most effective revision of the sentence? A. We went to dinner and then to other places. B. We went to dinner and we went to the movies and we went out for coffee. B. My girlfriend and I went out. And D. We went out to dinner, to the movies, and out for coffee. A.
D. So this is not that's not incorrect, but what we've done though is eliminate actually the other places that we went, where we still want to make sure that we're describing all of the places specifically. So D,
Okay.
right? So yeah, I mean that is correct though, but you're eliminating some of the information, so that's the issue there. But D, we went to dinner, comma, to the movies, comma, and out for coffee. So we're creating that list, right? That serial of items. And you'll see here as well, we talked about this before, the overuse of pronouns, right? So with B, we went to dinner and we went to the movies and we went for coffee. You're using those pronouns again too often, we, right? So we can eliminate that, put that into a list, all right? All the same people are doing the same things. So we just have to say, we as a group went to dinner, comma, to the movies, comma, and out for dinner. All right, D as in dog there. All right. Huh. That's weird, Christiana. I don't understand what's going on there, but no worries. You're here. That's what's important. I'll make sure that there's nothing checked or anything after class, but that's kind of strange. All right. So here we go with our drop-down boxes. Having a plan for what to do in an emergency is important to ensure the safety of your family. An emergency may include fire or, let's see here. We'll say an emergency may include a blank. So what we want to do here, Tracy?
In low fire, an earthquake, or B. In low of fire, an earthquake, or hurricanes. B.
Hurricane. Yeah, good job. So there, for one, it's like, okay, can I eliminate some wordiness, right? Can I boil this down to just the elements? So here, an emergency may include a fire, an earthquake, or a hurricane. So B, every family should make a family safety plan that outlines what to do in different types of emergencies. To create a family safety plan, follow these tips. Establish an escape route from each room of your home. Every member of the family should know how to get out of the home without assistance. Having a clear escape route is important. Or let's see here. Yeah, so having a clear escape route is blank could help save your life. Nilda, let's try that one.
Let me see. C.
So here they're throwing a kind of a trick at us. Here we're going to just make 2 sentences. So having a clear escape route is important. Period. Having an escape route could help save your life. The first one here, you would want a comma. So you could do that, but you'd want to put a comma and have an escape route. Actually, that's weird because C would work as well. Having a clear escape route is important.
What about D?
Well, yeah, it's, so I see what they're trying to do here is sort of emphasize that having escape route, right? The C, it kind of adds contrast when you don't need it, because you're making the point that you need an escape route. And then you would also need a comma to use D. So in this case, I don't really like that example because it's, I'm sorry, wait a minute. No, it is D. Having a clear escape route is important because it could help save your life. That's right. Yeah. So D here. I'm sorry. It's looked kind of strange to me. D, important because it could help save your life. Okay. That's what we want to go with there. All right. Sorry about that. I hope I didn't confuse you guys. Having a clear escape route is important because it could help save your life. I had to talk myself through that as well. Select meeting locations in case family members become separated. One location should be in your neighborhood. The other should be outside your neighborhood. You might not have access. You might not have access to a car, so all locations should be within walking distance. Choose a person outside the city to contact in the event of an emergency. Be sure that every family member has the telephone number and email address of this person. Collect the phone numbers and addresses of the places at which each family member spends the most time, such as a workplace or school. Eventually, you will share this information with all family members. Sasha Gay, we'll try that one.
B.
B as in boy. So here we're using a transition word, therefore. You don't see that as much. You're going to see nevertheless or however used with a semicolon and comma more often. But here, eventually, you will share this information with all family members, semicolon, therefore, comma, keep it in a safe place. You could separate that as two sentences as well, where you just have, eventually, you will share this information with all family members, period. Therefore, comma, keep it in a safe place. But making a complex sentence here, you put those two together, or I should say compound sentence, because you have two subjects there. Okay. And then prepare an emergency card for each family member to carry with him or her. The card should have information about emergency contacts, medical conditions, medication. Let's see, Christiana, try that one. I'm sorry, Christiana. Keep trying to come back to you. Grace, why don't you try that one?
Okay. B.
B, right? So we're using that conjunction and to make a complex sentence. So should have information about emergency contacts, medical conditions, medication, comma, and the names of family members. So that's actually a list. That's, instead of just having simple words like contacts, conditions, medication, we have emergency contacts, medical conditions, medication, comma, and the names of family members. So that's a list of items there. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so anyone need to follow up on the quiz there? Okay, so on to the workbook. So as we mentioned, help your writing flow by combining shorter sentences together, using introductory clauses and phrases, using signal words and things like that to make more complex sentences. And when you combine sentences, you can eliminate repeated subjects, verbs, or objects, or repeated pronouns like we saw. And then you can also clarify the relationship of one sentence to another sentence by combining sentences and adding words and because, after, therefore. And you can show cause and effect, explain sequence of events, or make comparisons. So here, right, so combine repeated elements. Like we talked about with pronouns, we can eliminate the use of those over and over again. And so, you know, these sentences here, it says Pedro drove to the record store, Pedro bought a CD. Talking about Pedro, so we could put those sentences together because he is the subject in both cases. So it becomes one sentence. Pedro drove to the record store and bought a CD, right? So combining those elements in the text box, it says repeating the subject Pedro in these two sentences, right? It sounds choppy. It's grammatically correct, but it doesn't flow that well. And the reader kind of gets exhausted if you keep using these short sentences with the same subject. And then making compound sentences, right? So a compound sentence is basically, it has two subjects. It's two complete sentences on their own, and we're going to combine them with conjunction or some other phrase to make one sentence. Millions of people use the internet. Writing skills may suffer because of it. Okay, two complete sentences again, making a compound sentence where we can keep this the subject in both sides of that sentence. Millions of people use the internet, comma, but writing skills may suffer because of it. So we don't change anything really about the structure of the sentence. Millions of people, that's the subject in that first sentence. Writing skills, subject in the second sentence, right? But we add but, and we make a compound sentence. Complex sentence, on the other hand, has a subordinate clause. Millions of people use the internet. Writing skills may suffer because of it. Here we change it like this. Although millions of people use the internet, comma, writing skills may suffer because of it. In this case, rather than having two complete sentences, we're making a subordinate clause there. So although millions of people use the internet, right, that's not a complete sentence on its own. We talked about sentence fragments. So we need a clause. We need another clause to connect to that subordinate clause, comma, writing skills may suffer because of it. Putting those two together, we have a complex sentence. And then show the relationship of one idea to another. She was running very late. She missed the bus. So here, she was running very late. As a result, she missed the bus. So we put, right, that's one of those other transitional phrases, one of those signal phrases that we see. Here, we're showing the relationship between her running late and her missing the bus. So she was very late, semicolon, as a result, comma, she missed the bus. So words such as a result help show the relationship between, of cause and effect between the ideas. Combining sentences with words that signal relationships enhances the flow and clarity of writing. So in addition to, combining those sentences, that's where you're going to use those sort of transitional words and phrases to help show the relationship, and it helps the flow of the sentences, helps guide the reader to understand connections between ideas. So she was running very late. She missed the bus. Okay. The reader has to assume, if you're using those two short sentences, that she missed the bus because she was running late. But if I add that transitional phrase, she was running late, as a result, she missed the bus, then the reader knows for sure the reason there. And we have a little more of a complex idea. All right, starting up the workbook here. So as you determine whether sentences should be combined, ask yourself which repeated words or phrases can be eliminated without changing the meaning of the sentence. So, same thing with, if I have the same subject, how can I combine those sentences without changing the meaning? And better yet, how can I use phrases, punctuation to help explain how those two sentences are the relationship between those two sentences? How are they connected? All right, so number one, let's go to Tracy. Number one here.
Yes. Emma talked to Emma talked to Joe. Emma talked to Joe's mother, which is the best revision of the sentences. A. Emma talked to Ray. Emma talked to John and Joe's mother. B. Emma talked to Riley, John, and Joe's mother. C. Emma talked to Ray. Emma talked to John and her mother. D. Emma talked to Ray and Joe, Emma talked to Ron's mother. B.
Right. So we see we eliminate that wordiness. We eliminate repeating the subject over and over again. Emma is she's it's the same action in each sentence. So this one's straightforward, right? So Emma talked to Riley, Joan, and Joan's mother. We eliminate that repetition of the verb and the subject. So Emma talked to Riley, Joan, and Joan's mother. Here at the bottom, this is what I was talking about, where you can use semicolon in replace of and, but we're still repeating the subject again, right? So Emma talked to Riley and Joan, semicolon, Emma talked to Joan's mother. Grammatically correct, still too wordy and repetitive with the use of the verb. Okay, so B as in boy for number one. Right, there's what we're working with, combining repeated elements just like we did there. Make compound sentences where we're combining two sentences. Make complex sentences where we have a subordinate clause that needs to be connected to a sentence, and then showing relationship. So what's the relationship between two shorter sentences? Okay, Nilda, you want to take this one for us, number two?
Yes. Let's see. Carl made a sandwich. Carol was hungry. Which is the best revision of the sentences? A. Carol made a sandwich. How do you say that? Point, comma, I think. I don't know.
Oh, the semicolon?
Semicolon, yeah. Carl was hungry. B. Carol made a sandwich and Carl was hungry. C. Carl made a sandwich because he was hungry. D. Carl made a sandwich, semicolon, moreover, comma, he was hungry. B.
C. So this one, there's kind of you're implying, right, that he made that he was hungry. So Carl made a sandwich because he was hungry. That's showing relationship. And in this situation, you don't need like a semicolon and comma or anything. You just use because, and you're showing the relationship between him making a sandwich and he was hungry. You could reword it and get all fancy and say Carl was hungry, semicolon, therefore, comma, he made a sandwich. But that's, again, you want to also keep it simple and not, get too gross or fancy when combining these things. So C, they're pretty straightforward. The semicolon, like you mentioned, so we have a full colon, right? That's a dot and a dot over top of a dot. That's used when we're separating out information. So like a longer list, you might use it. So I went to the store to buy colon, and then I have a whole list of items. The semicolon, on the other hand, right, dot, and it has like the comma underneath it. We use it in these situations to sort of break up information. Okay, and here we go with our paragraphs here. So adopting a cat In many cities, animal shelters are overcrowded with animals in need of homes. For many prospective pet owners, these shelters offer an expensive and ethical alternative to finding pets through expensive breeders or mall pet stores. For example, if you hope to adopt a cat, you may find that a shelter cat is the right pet for you. If you identify a cat online that you might be interested in adopting, the next step is to visit the shelter and meet the animal. Many shelters will have pets on display for potential adopters. Sasha Gay, how do we want to break up this sentence? Or combine it?
C.
C, yep. So, however, right, we're going to use that. There are choices here. Basically, it's either going to be that or therefore and. So here, many shelters still have pets on display for potential adopters, semicolon, however, comma, you may need to request to see a particular animal that you have identified online. So here, making that transition and adding a little bit of contrast. So, it's saying in the first sentence here, right, that they have animals or pets on display, but if you want to see a particular animal, right, there's a little bit of contrast there. It's like, well, they have plenty of animals. If you have a particular one in mind, though, you may need to identify it online. That, however, statement helps that transition there. And then our correct punctuations with the semicolon and comma. When you do meet your prospective pet, be sure to spend some time with it to get a sense of its personality and disposition. Some potential adopters may be looking for a laid-back lap cat. Others may be seeking an energetic playmate. Grace, what do we want to use here?
B.
So more contrast, right? Some adopters may be looking for a laid-back lap cat, but others may be seeking an energetic playmate. So, right, two different sides there. You have some people looking for this, some people looking for that. We combine those two ideas with but for the contrast there. So cat, comma, but others may be seeking an energetic playmate. Also consider how these cats interact with the other animals around them. A cat's temperament can prove especially important if you have other pets at home. Tracy, what do you want to use here?
Yes. The pet as a home or if be home dog. A cat's temperament is important if you might see harm although the harm, however, if you have other pet at home. Or if you might wish to A.
Yeah. So real simple here, right? We don't want to change. The problem with some of those other choices is it kind of changes the idea with although or however, but or, right, is giving you two choices. So a cat's temperament can prove especially important if you have other pets at home, or if you might wish to have another pet in the future. So that way, right? Either or kind of a statement. After you have selected your pet, shelter workers will ask you to fill out some paperwork. Often, these materials include a contract that requires you to provide for your pet and give it the necessary veterinary care. This shelter may require that a pet be spayed or neutered before it can be sent home. Nilda, how do we combine these sentences?
A.
B. So here, what's a little different from that first, right? Up here, we used or as well. Here, we're making a compound sentence. So we have two ideas. So the shelter may require that a pet be spayed or neutered before it can be sent home. comma, or you may be able to bring your new pet home on the same day as your visit. So what's different from the first example and the use of or here is that we have a compound sentence. We have two subjects. We could just put a period after home. So we could say the shelter may require that a pet be spayed or neutered before it can be sent home, period. You may be, or you may be able to bring your new pet home on the same day as your visit. But we're going to add a comma because we have two sentences that we're splicing, no, I should say splicing together, that we're combining together. Comma splices are something that we're going to deal with later. So there we go for that. Okay. So a few months ago, I was looking for a way to get more involved in my community. Eventually, I searched online listings for volunteer opportunities. I found an advertisement seeking volunteers for the local community theater. At first, I was hesitant to check it out. Sasha Gay, how do we combine this one?
A.
A. So right here, right, he's saying that he was hesitant to check it out. We're going to add some contrast though, but even though he was hesitant, he decided to give it a try. So at first I was hesitant to check it out, comma, but I decided to give it a try. I went to a meeting for the theater group the next week. I quickly discovered there are many jobs for guys to do behind the scenes that do not involve performing. My first project, I helped construct the set for the performance of an upcoming play. The set designed to resemble the interior of an apartment in the 1960s. Along with a crew of 10 people, I built platforms. Grace, what do we want here? Did you say C?
Yes, in caps.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a list, right? I built platforms, comma, doors, comma, and backdrops. Not so much sentence combining there, right? This is more just that exercise and use of commas. So we're not chopping anything up. We're just making sure that we have our commas in the right place as far as listing items. So this individual helped build platforms, comma, doors, comma, and backdrops. It was hard work, yet I felt very proud of my contribution to the production. Next, I assisted the lighting director as she prepared for the shows. She taught me the basics of lighting design. I learned that a play's mood, theme, and plot all contribute to a lighting director's decisions. The lighting director chooses which lights should be used. Tracy.
Yes, should be A used. She also choose B used and C used, but she chooses D use it or chooses how they should be arranged and operated. Should to be use it and B.
Yeah, so the lighting director chooses which lights should be used and how they should be arranged and operated. So we don't have a complete, well, we do, having the lighting director chooses which lights should be used. We could have a complete sentence there, but that next phrase would not be a complete sentence. Using and here, we're combining two ideas, right? It's just two things. The lighting director chooses which lights should be used and how they should be arranged and operated. So two items that she's responsible for. So we just need and, no punctuation there. We're continuing that same idea. After we had completed the design, the director showed me how to enter it into the computer that controls the lighting. She marked a script with lighting cues so that I knew when to select the next lighting pattern on the computer. For anyone looking for an exciting and rewarding volunteer opportunity, check out your local community theater. You will help your community learn some really cool stuff. Nilda, what do we want to use here?
You help you. D.
Yes. So just like the one before, right? You will help your community and learn some really cool stuff. So just, two ideas there connected with and. If you wanted to chop them up and make the sentence choppy, you could say, you will help your community, period. You will learn some really cool stuff. But, same idea, much better flow, much easier to understand if we just use and. So you will help your community and learn some really cool stuff. Okay, so that was 4. We've got one more here. Okay, job shadowing, opportunities for juniors and seniors. Do you want to learn more about a possible career? Sasha Gay, what do we do here?
B.
C. So again, just need and. So do you want to learn more about a possible career and experience it firsthand? If so, a job shadow program may be perfect for you. In a job shadow situation, a potential employee observes the daily duties, responsibilities, and challenges of an existing employee. Through such observations, you may determine whether you would like to pursue such a position as a summer job. Grace, try that one. A, yeah. So job, so position as a summer job or even as a career. So just a either or statement there. Do you want to just pursue it in the short term or in the long term, right? That's kind of what it's making there. The strategies outlined below can help you enjoy a successful job shadow experience. First, identify a job that you have an interest in shadowing. Tracy.
Yes. Interest in A, shadow or make arrangement. B, shadow, you need to make arrangement. C, shadowing, however. C, D, shadowing and make arrangement. Hey, interested in shadowing or make A.
So D. So here you're going to do, you're on the right track, but we want to make sure that we're including it. So it's not an either or situation, it's and, right? So we're doing both. We want to identify it and make arrangements. So shadowing, comma, and make arrangements for a visit. Referrals from friends or family members, resources such as the internet or local force development contacts may help you identify the best person to contact. Even if you lack the training, qualifications, or degree to perform this job today, shadowing a person working in your field of interest may help you decide whether you want to pursue this work. After you identify the job, you'll need to identify the name of a manager, supervisor, or human resources official who may be able to assist you in scheduling a job shadow experience. It may be difficult to arrange to shadow. Nilda, last one here.
To arrange the shadow.
B.
B, yeah, to shadow an employee after you've identified a job you want to shadow. So, you know, there's no need for punctuation or anything here, just more of a complex idea. It may be difficult to arrange to shadow an employee after you've identified a job you want to shadow. Some businesses may be more open to offering job shadow experiences than others. Issues of insurance liability and scheduling are all possible reasons for denials of job shadow requests. As a result, you may need to call several companies before receiving permission to shadow one of their employees. All right, that is the end here. Everybody able to get all the answers? The thing about the exercises here is sometimes it's a little difficult to make sure that you understand their context and what they're going for. Some of them are straightforward. You know, the multiple choice are a little bit easier because you could see all of the options there. It's easier when you're going to be doing it on your own and you're writing. And that's another element that, you know, it gets easier as you do to make more complex and compound sentences. And it's something that you can also do in editing, right? So if you see after you've written something, you know, maybe I've used the same subject for, you know, 2 sentences in a row, you know, can I combine those? Can I use a conjunction, or can I use a transitional phrase or word to combine those 2 elements, to combine those 2 sentences? The exercises help, and the rules certainly help. And I'm going to have those on Google Classroom. But sometimes I think the examples they give, we're almost reading minds, you know, when we want to make sure that we're not changing the idea of the sentence with what the options they give us. But either way, I think you get a better idea. Those 2 together, you know, you're going to use commas a lot when you're going to make more, when you combine sentences. That's one of the forms of punctuation you're probably going to see the most. So those 2 lessons go pretty well together. And I think it also helps explain the sentence fragment exercise that we did yesterday. You know, now you can see, and we'll talk a little bit more about like comma splices when we're combining sentences and we're missing a subject or some other element that's needed. So that's going to help build. So this last, these lessons right here for the next few days, it's going to start building on each other. So it'll start making a little more sense the more we add to it. All right. Any questions on commas or sentence combining then? All right. So, you know, I'm going to have some rules up on Google Classroom. I put some more examples up. I put some like a PDF on combining sentences to help you. There's a whole list of ways to do that, some exercises there. So take a look at that. That'll help as well, especially when you get to writing. Okay. So another short day. But if there's nothing you need me to cover more, we can pack it up.
Mr. Mas, I already test on the GED.com, the social, the social.
The social.
Yeah. So I just got 133. But I don't know what I were wrong in this answer because they don't respond me what I wrong and right. So next time I will test again. So I will record and I mean I will record and start the answer. Could you help me check?
Yeah, I'll see if I can take a look at that. Did you say you got a 155 though?
Yes.
Okay, so you passed first off. So
No, They told me just close back